Hi, everybody, and welcome to Wheaton Conversations. It is my pleasure to say that we are being joined by James Akers and Jacob Willcox. I am Pamela Weichman, your host and the Director of Education and Artist Services at WheatonArts. I'm a white female in my mid-30s with long brown hair and blue eyes. I am wearing a gray sweater. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am broadcasting from Southern New Jersey, which I recognize as traditionally the land of the Lenni Lenape. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout the program for your technical and general questions. Links to additional resources will also be posted in the chat throughout the program. We've kind of chatted about a few of them, so definitely check it out. There's going to be some interesting links going into that chat for this program. If you would like to pose a question to any of our speakers, please do so using the Q&A feature. We'll be monitoring that throughout the program. Should you lose connection for any reason, please close down all windows, then click the link in your original email, and that will allow you to join again. It is my pleasure to introduce my co-host for this program, Fallon Ward. Fallon is the Museum of American Glass curatorial assistant. She plays a key role in collection research, interpretation, and exhibition development. Our museum is a resource for the visiting artists. Therefore, Fallon works closely with our visiting artists during their residencies and beyond. She curated the exhibition Collecting and Connecting Recent Acquisitions, which is on view until 2023. Fallon is a graduate of Rutgers University Art History program, having earned her bachelor's degree in 2018. Fallon, thank you so much for being here with us for this program.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to join you tonight. Well, thank you, everyone. To give a little context about why we're gathered here tonight, I'd like to explain a little bit about Collecting and Connecting. This is an exhibit that focuses on new acquisitions in the museum. Pam, if we can go to the next slide. In this exhibit, we have a piece by one of our speakers, James Akers. As you see on the right, a beautiful pink piece. This is called 50 Shades of Pink Tumbleweed. This is really exciting to have an exhibit because it is the first piece of neon in the museum's collection. So we thought we wanted to invite James to really talk about it and start a dialogue with our audiences about what neon is and what neon is like right now with contemporary artists. And so when we asked James to join us, we asked who he would want to invite, and he said Jacob Willcox. And so I'm so excited for both of them to join us today. Next, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. First, we have James Akers. Attracted to short attention spans, total artistic freedom, electricity, tech, and advertisement, James Akers is an artist, educator, and neon bender. He received his BFA from Alfred University in 2015, where he became captivated by the notion of the wild one and people doing things they're not supposed to. Traveling and exhibiting nationally and internationally since his graduation, Akers now resides in Brooklyn. With his partner, Ali Feeney, James co-runs a neon company, Nebula Neon, fulfilling his desire to create and letting Akers focus on new, exciting ideas and thought-provoking projects. Thank you for joining us, James.
Thanks, Alan.
Also, this isn't mentioned in his bio. James is an amazing karaoke singer. Amazing. And then I'd like to introduce you to Jacob Willcox. Jacob is a glass and light artist from Tacoma, Washington. He is an alumni of the Hilltop Artist Program. He has been working with glass since 2012 and is a recent graduate of the Sculptural and Dimensional Studies program at Alfred University. He has studied and worked at institutions like Pilchuck, Haystack, and the Museum of Glass. He now resides in Seattle, Washington, where he works as a commercial neon bender while maintaining his artistic practice. Thank you for joining us, Jacob.
Of course, so excited to be here.
A little before we hand it over to our speakers, I do want to mention to our audience, there are photos and videos with flashing lights and sounds in case anyone is sensitive to that. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys and we'll begin the conversation.
So this is where I'm from originally. I'm from Maryland, Woodbine, a little tiny town. It's not like, it's kind of farm country where I'm from. So and I grew up skateboarding. I went to Woodward. Oh, there's this little bar No way. There we go. I went to Woodward, and there's me at my local skate park. And let's see. I also played a lot of video games growing up. I was that kind of kid who wanted to take everything apart. And my brother and I would hack video game consoles. So on the left is we rigged up a Xbox controller to have an Arduino press its buttons so it would automatically play this sequence. And on the right is this thing where you could hot swap these discs. So we would get games like Call of Duty games, and you had to have the disc, like the original disc, to make sure it wasn't a pirated game. And then there was a certain sequence where it would like slow down spinning, and you'd take that little magnet off and then swap in a modified disc that you could just like get online. And then you could have all kinds of fun effects, like these little mod menus. And we would get into these like hacked lobbies and be like, oh my gosh. And suddenly you could fly and do all kinds of stuff that the game that felt so natural and normal, suddenly you could do all kinds of crazy things. And these were always really fun to bring into online lobbies, or you could do all kinds of stuff. So that we've enjoyed, my brother and I, yeah, we enjoy this kind of like hacking video games. And there was always kind of like a trying to stay one step ahead of, because we were doing this on consoles. And so like Microsoft in our case was always trying to like patch and make it so you can't do these things, to preserve the gameplay experience or whatever. And yeah, we were always trying to like, stay ahead of that. So Jacob, you want to talk about some of these?
Yeah, so this is some pictures from my tween to early teenage period of my life. The picture on the top right was a picture that I found off my mother's Facebook. It was a spread of me and my brother's glasswork in, I believe, 2010 or 2011. And so he was he was in the Hilltop program, and he got me into that as a kid. And then I got to do a lot of cool things with Hilltop as I was growing up. I got to meet Pino and Dale. I got to go to the boathouse in Dale Shahuli's boathouse. I got to meet like Dan Friday and the whole team. I also skateboarded as a child. And so I got into those types of things and blowing glass.
How old were you in that photo with Dan Friday?
I would say probably 13.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Adorable.
Yeah, these are all before I was 15 years old. I know that. And then we can go to the next slide. And so with the Hilltop Artist program, I stuck around after middle school because I got to take it as a class in middle school, and that was real fun. And I got to stick around throughout high school and join their team production, where you get to do cool things like make pumpkins and ornaments and sell them, and you get to start working at the age of 14, which is really, really cool and really fun. And every year they would let us bring our family in and teach like glass workshops to our family. So here's me and my good friend Zane, who actually ended up being my college roommate at Alfred University, helping my mom make a little mini pumpkin paperweight that she still has on her desk as a little paperweight she keeps year round. And then
Zane.
yeah, Zane. I said that to him, and he was
on
what
the
a
panel.
transition.
Yeah. Wow.
We can go to the next slide. And so as I got older, I got a little bit more into glass blowing and all that stuff. And I really like diverted my attention from being a little, teenage gremlin running around. And I really started focusing on like turning glass into a reality. So I started interning at the Museum of Glass. And on my first day, it happened to be Lino's residency. They didn't tell me why I was getting there at 5 o'clock in the morning. And turns out it was because Lino was in the shop that day. And then every year, Hilltop Artists has a big annual luncheon and fundraiser to help support the program. And I believe it was 2017, my senior year of high school, me and my really good pal, my Sean, got to give speeches and talk about our experiences in the program. And we got to meet Dale Shahuli again. So that was a real special moment. And here, the bottom pick, that same year, I got to go to Pilchuck for the first time and work as staff. And so that's me in the kitchen hanging out. excited as could be to be there. I got to skip the last like month and a half, 2 months of school. And I was like doing book reports in the library. And it was a really, really special time. And then that summer I was going to Alfred University, which I think I get into in the next slide.
It's awesome seeing those photos of my Sean too.
Also, Jacob, may I ask, did you ask Lino for the selfie?
Oh, absolutely. I was starstruck. I couldn't believe what I had just done.
You can tell in your face, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was a really fun day. And then so here we got my first piece of, well, at Alfred University, you have to go through a foundations program. So I didn't get to take any glass classes until my second year at Alfred. And so this is a picture from my first critique in my intro to glass class. And I was also taking this class called Glass Art Engineering with this dude named Angus Powers, a really cool professor. And I was able to melt my own amber glass. I was trying to recreate beer bottle glass. And then so I rolled them into a bunch of slabs, and I was really trying to like break the notion of like thinking about glass as strictly as a craft. And so I was like, well, I'm at Alfred. I'm learning more about glass as a material rather than a craft. And so I wanted to go all out and do an installation, play with color and light. And this was kind of the start of, you know, me thinking about light as a medium as well as glass. And so we can go to the next one. And then, you know, the same time I was still blowing glass. I love to pull cane, twist it up, carve it. Not to say that, you know, I stopped blowing glass, but this was probably like the last significant piece of glass I made that I considered like a completed art piece. And I think that was 2019, I believe.
You had a funny story about like going from Hilltop to Alfred, right? There was like a moment like where they were like wanting you to like apply to like you couldn't get a letter of recommendation from them or something like that.
Oh yeah, I wanted to go work at this glass shop in Seattle called Glassy Baby, and my production manager Jessica Hogan, God bless her, you know, she was like, you need to apply to 3 art schools, the one in our local town, and then Tacoma, Washington. And then she was like, apply to Alfred and apply to RISD. And I only ended up applying to Alfred. And, I was like, sweet, I'll get in. I won't go. I really didn't want to go to college. And then, so I was like hoping I didn't get in, but I ended up getting in. I decided to go after, you know, getting the acceptance letter, to see my parents super excited to go to college because they didn't get to go to college. So they were very excited that I had that opportunity. And I was as well after receiving the letter. And then so I did not go work at Glassy Baby. But, you know, I still went through, you know, the standard glassblower goblet phase. Love making goblets. But after I started making goblets, I got really, I don't want to say bored, but I like kind of lost like that spark to make things out of glass. I didn't really have any fresh ideas, and I felt like I was just replicating things that I was seeing, and I really wanted to break out from that. And so I still made goblets for fun to get my glass blowing fix. And then I took a neon class with Sarah Blood my junior year at Alfred. Oh, but I also melted colors. And
It's
that
that Glass Art Engine.
Yeah, and Glass Art Engine. And I was really chasing an opaline. And I wasn't chasing it necessarily for its blowing qualities. I really liked how opaline was like kiln formed, because the glass strikes in such a unique way. So I would just send them on the most like insane programs. Like I would just put all this glass in like concrete and kilns and just send it up and down as quickly as possible. Sometimes I'd like crash the kilns at like 600 degrees because I knew I wasn't going to be traveling with any of this stuff, and I really just wanted to see what the glass could do. So they were all very like temporary installations, and I would just use my scraps from the color pots from melting the opaline to just make melty glass. And that really got me thinking about glass as the material and just trying to capture the movement between molten and solid.
That opaline is gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
I
Wow.
think that's the blurpaline.
The,
It was supposed to be really purple, but it didn't. This was the toothpaste one. This was one of my favorite ones. This is a chromium oxide, which like mixed in with the like stuff I used to make it opalize, which is actually a seafood fertilizer. Uh, no, a seafood preservative. Sorry, sodium tripolyphosphate, and that stuff really really nice. And it's actually like some people use it to like clean their laundry. So I was really interested in like making an opaline that wasn't as toxic as other opalines as well, because they use like fluorine and like antimony and a lot of crazy stuff that I was not allowed to use at Alfred, and I'm glad I was not using. But yeah, this was one of my favorite ones. This was a toothpaste green, but it was like when it was clear before it had struck, it was like the most like vibrant like emerald green color, and then when it opalized, it really like changed the whole tone. So that was a really exciting melt, and I probably did about like 10 melts of those, ranging like copper blues, all the different ranges of colors I could get with like what I could find around at school. And then I was like, okay, cool, I'm having fun with colors. This is cool. And I took an imagery class, and that was really fun. And that was with Karen Donnellan. And so I wanted to find a way to like kind of incorporate like the stuff I drew, because I never really considered like my drawing part of my artistic practice, something I more did just to like draw and hang out. But so that was a really good class. Kind of broke me more out of that mold of just thinking about glasses, like making cups and bowls and all of that. And then what do we got next? Oh yeah, and then and now we made it to the neon. This was in 2020. This was the first sign I ever made. And I actually had a lot of help doing this from someone named Ethan Samaha, who I believe is actually in the chat right now. Well, in the talk. But me and him had to make a sign for a play that he was a part of, like the like production design. And so I had to bend all this glass, and then we assembled it, and that was a really fun project. But that was the first time I ever had to bend letters and really follow a pattern. You can see it's pretty rough in the bending.
Pretty good
But
though, for the first time.
yeah, and it was like not enough glass. It was the first time I ever felt the pressure of neon bending.
And may I ask, what does Library of Heaven refer to?
It was I think it was the title of the play.
Okay.
I don't remember. Ethan, if you're there, please plop that in the chat.
The colors are amazing. I love the colors.
And then that like kind of got me inspired to start bending letters. And then it was 2020, and being in Alfred, which is a very rural area, there was definitely a big mix of political views. And so I wanted to use signage as a material rather than a way of like selling something. I wanted to use the same tactics you would use in signage to convey a message. And this was around election time. So I put this out in my front yard on our one main street. And then it was really funny seeing all the people who had different opinions than I did reacting to it, as well as the people who agreed with me. And so that was a really fun project to do.
Allegheny County.
Allegheny.
Yep.
And then I got really into neon for a while, and I was just like, neon, 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 neon. And I was like, oh, but I should start using all these other amazing facilities I have at Alfred. And I really like the kiln stuff. That's where I got like the most hooked, was putting things in kilns and letting gravity and heat affect the glass. There was just something about that really got me. And so this is a piece titled Beer Run. It's about, so this was initially prompted in an assignment we were given. It was we had a week to make a piece of neon, a piece of art that included neon with a found piece of neon. And then we were given an adjective, and I was given slump. So I proceeded to call all of my friends, and I said, I need to get rid of this 18-pack of Miller High Life glass bottles, and I need them by tomorrow. The kiln goes up at 9 a.m. And so that's what started this series I do called Beer Run, where I take all the beer bottles I can find, put them in a kiln, get them hot, and emulate the emotion of what it feels like after drinking. And then light it up with neon, because you are bound to see neon on your way to go get the beer.
Right.
What a problem. Like, I have to get rid of these 18 beers. Like,
Yeah.
I need help. Like,
And so I was, and this is about like my senior year. I'm finishing up, my time at Alfred. And so we did a lot of critiques where we were like kind of gearing up for our show. And this was probably my favorite installation I did with the items I made for my show, because I saw my show more as an installation rather than like multiple art pieces. And so I was really working on building a space rather than building like, this is this piece, this is this piece. And so this was the first iteration of Player Get Played. And I had some blown glass in there. I really wanted to check all the boxes. And then I realized I didn't need to do that. It was just me being a stubborn glass blower, being like, I blow glass. I know how to do that. But I think it was for the best, me realizing that I don't always need to utilize glass as a material. But growing up with glass, I always felt like I had to use it because I was given such an amazing opportunity at such a young age that I really, really always wanted to find a way to utilize glass. But I found neon, and I'm very, very happy to be a neon bender. And so we can go on to the next slide. What were you saying, Jake?
I think in some senses it's kind of nice you get like these captured reflections and little details in there. I think there's nice things in mixing the two.
Jacob, we had a question about Beer Run. So someone asked, did Jacob's Beer Run piece eventually crack, or did all of the bottles have the same COE?
I believe they all had the same COE because we were using, I would never mix different colors of bottles. It'd always be from the same like rack of beer. It was always kind of important to me as well to make it about like, I didn't ever want to find the bottles. I have made some where I found the bottles, but I was more interested in creating the glass and then recycling it.
Creating.
And then these are some pics of my final show, Player Get Played. And I was really creating an indulgent space where I wanted to highlight the absurdity of neon and signage, but lean more towards the indulgent signage. That's what I always found more interesting. There's a lot to be said about like indulgent neon. And, this was a piece in the show called Ill Advised. And this is a piece I really feel like is highlighting the absurdity of signage, using animation to reverse what you would expect how the sign to be animated. And what this does is it's kind of giving bad directions, kind of asking why do we always follow signage? Is all signage appropriate and necessary? Kind of thinking about those things when I was making this piece.
I love the you can see like this just red orange environment, like you were talking earlier about like creating the installation in the room, which neon spills out and kind of does that. And this one you also have, you're like, I think I asked you before, but I even forgot, like this thing at the bottom here where like the power is on, you have this like glass slump thing. Like, what was that again?
Oh yeah, that was another instance of me wanting to use glass. And so I made all my transformers were on the ground, and I wanted them to sit on the ground. So I was doing a lot of slumping stuff in the kilns, and I had all these bricks where I'd put like 10, 15 panes of sheet glass on and just like melt over the bricks in the kiln. And in that same manner where I'd be doing like a firing every 12 hours where it would like, I wouldn't anneal the glass properly. It was all like very temporary. I just wanted to do it very quick. I just wanted to see what the glass would do. It was really just like scratching my own curiosity.
I love that. It's like the thing that's supposed to be the protector, the supporter, is so fragile, and like yeah, it's a fragile glass. It's a great insulator.
It's someone in the comments, Jacob, said the visible wire is adding to this absurdity nicely too, which I love. And there's something, I've been thinking about it when we were going over this piece. There's something almost like Duchampian, a little Dada-esque about misdirection and like not knowing how to rely on a sign, particularly with neon, is like its purpose, particularly in America, was to be a communicator. So to use it to miscommunicate is really interesting.
Yeah. And then after school, I started working at a sign shop. I had a very fortunate experience in getting into the signage industry, which is very, very lucky, because a lot of people don't have such an easy entry into the signage industry. I happened to get hired as an apprentice at a sign shop in Seattle. And very shortly after me starting to work there, about maybe a week officially, the vendor who I was supposed to be apprenticing under no longer worked at that company. I'd only met him for about 30 minutes on the first day. And then I was kind of left with a sign shop. And I did have some help from some Seattle community members who would come in once a week or so for the first like month or two and be like, what are you having issues with? Like, let's try this. But for the most part, I was just kind of off on my own doing neon, and I had to figure it out. And so my first job was for this place called Perry's Pizzeria and Tap House. It's a growing chain in like Colorado, Arizona, and I think Texas, all around that area. And the first one took me 2.5 weeks for 12 units of neon. And then I recently just did 3 of them, and I made all of those within a week. So they were very excited to give me that opportunity to let me kind of sweat it out, for the first few months so that I could get up to speed. And I've been very fortunate to work there. One of the coolest projects I've ever worked on at National Sign Corporation in Seattle is this Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles. It's about 12 feet tall by 12 feet wide, and there's a double-sided, so I had to make 2 signs essentially, and it was about 85 or 90 pieces of neon, all going in, and it's all using this like fancy Italian classic glass that loves to break. And it was felt like my first week back at National making that sign. So to see that get made and then get shipped off to Inglewood, California was a very gratifying experience. And James was there in Seattle while I was working on this, and he heard all about it. And
this is like super impressive, the stuff that you've done, and you're like learning so quick. Like they really threw you into the fire with how quickly that vendor left. And like the stuff you're bending, it's hard. Like you're like going into like these housings, and you're way up high. It's like I struggle with that kind of stuff like all the time. So definitely like commend you on the technical stuff here you're doing, because it's not easy, even if it is 50 feet up in the air. Like it's tough stuff. So
yeah, then I was given a really great opportunity from my mentor, Trenton Kiocho. He curated a show at the Tacoma Art Museum, and I was given, kind of a space, and they're like, we need some big neon in this show. And so I initially made it a lot smaller. And then the museum's like, you're gonna need to fill up a little bit more space than that. We have this like big blank wall in the gallery. And I was like, okay, I'll make it a bit bigger. And so this piece is called Going Up. And then again, this is I really like to make arrows that point to nothing, to kind of, poke back into the absurdity of signage, especially directional signage, like don't park here. I always question those things. Why can't I park there? So this piece was a little bit about just like a site specific installation and working with like, the architecture and like light and filling the space. But also part of it was tapping in to like kind of moving on from like what I was making in Alfred and just kind of, you know, continuing those thoughts. And on the right are my amazing parents who asked me what I wanted to be when I was 12 years old. And I happened to be in the Hilltop program. And I was like, I'm going to be a glass blower. And they're like, yeah, you are. And they're like, do what you need to do that.
Great.
And then just kind of it let me skip school to go to the hot shop and do all types of cool things. So love them for that.
Yeah,
And they're sick people.
Jacob, I'm curious about this, since this is such a big scale. Is this one continuous tube, or how many tubes is this made out of?
This is 20 units of neon.
Wow.
Yeah, and so part of it was like bent to be modular, so it can be installed in almost any space, because it's actually on like a corner like this, so it's not on a flat wall, so it kind of goes whoop whoop. And so I wanted to I bent it so that I could like install, you know, maybe I wanted to make it shorter, maybe I got to the museum and they're like, it's too big, I'd be able to shrink it back down. And I think that that's one of the really cool parts about neon, is that you can retrofit things. You can make neon you can use neon from a sign from the 70s, and you can slap it on a wall in a bar with you know, a little bit of installation skills, and it's doing the same job in a different space, just mainly because of the light quality it provides. Is that it's not always about the actual design of the neon, it's about what the neon is providing to the space.
Yeah. That makes it so blue. You can tell in that photo, it's like everything is blue now.
It's beautiful. I love that blue.
And then my most recent project has been a big passion project of me and my very, very close friends who I call a family. Me, Danny Kays, and Galen Turner. We've all been working out of the same studio in Tacoma. And we were given the opportunity to do a presentation at the Glass Arts Society conference in Tacoma, Washington. And so we were like, what are we going to call it? And then Galen likes to spew a lot of nonsense. And he goes, oh, we're going to call it the Gas Filling Tube Suckers. And it has stuck. So our more professional name is GFTS, but we are Gas Filling Tube Suckers, because that is essentially how you make neon. You got to fill it with gas, and you got to suck all the air out in a reverse process. So you suck all the air out, and then you fill it with gas. But and so we're primarily artist collective / sign shop / educators / family / a lot of things. But we realized that we were doing everything as a unit, and we needed to work together. So we banded together and we made GFTS, and we had art shows and all that good type of stuff. We can go to the next slide.
Oh, I was gonna say, as a resident here, like with Galen and all, it's a really sweet setup. And I mean the kind of, I think it's super exciting what you all have going on with the GFTS. Yeah, it's super exciting. Go get Galen.
Wow.
And then so this is me and Galen. He makes these like weird glass things. He likes hand pulled tubing. He doesn't really like factory tubing. He likes all his tubing to be pulled in the hot shop, and that's where my glass blowing skills do come in handy. But and so this was us at the gas conference. We all had matching t-shirts and sweatshirts, and we made this fancy little arrow, and we built a bombarder outside on wheels, mobile bombarder. And that's Danny in the top left-hand corner giving the bombarding demo. She is the bombarding queen. She's got all the details. She's got the theory. She's in like chemistry school right now, so she's always spitting science, and I love it. And just very fortunate to be working with this group of people.
Yeah, like this setup is amazing. Like Galen built out this mobile bombarder. Like there's not a lot of mobile bombarders out there that can be set up in a parking lot on like such short notice. Like this is like a pole transformer. It's like so good. And Galen's got all these cool, funky bends that like you never see. I don't even know how he does those. It's just super cool. He tried explaining, but I couldn't comprehend. It was, yeah. Super.
Jacob, this is a question for the audience, but for myself, can people buy the glass filling tube sucker shirts?
You know, that's a loaded question. So you cannot.
Okay.
The GFTS merch is a signifier of this little community we've built up together. You know, it's more of a souvenir for coming out and hanging out with us at our studio.
Oh, cool.
We don't sell them, and we kind of give them out to people who spend some time with us, spend some time at the studio, you know, work on a project with us,
Right.
or you know, they're given, not
You have
necessarily.
to earn it.
Yeah, and that's a little beyond my control. You know, the other founding members are very strict on that. And
But if
then
you ever get an opportunity to go do something with them, I highly recommend it. Not only is it a great group of people, but the studio is awesome. I mean, something about Galen's place, like like it just has this kind of conversational flow. Like usually Neon's a pretty solitary thing. Like you kind of get into your own world and make. Galen's one of the only studios I've been to where it's like, I just want to like chat with people and kind of talk and make at the same time. That doesn't happen very often in this field. So it's got a good energy to it.
and we don't start work until 5 p.m.
The late night crowd.
Yeah, so we're gonna go back to the other slide real
Oh,
quick. And then just one of the last things that we've done with GFTS, this is me and Danny Kays again. And we were given the fortunate opportunity to give back to the Hilltop Artist Program. We taught a neon workshop with the Hilltop students at Pilchuck Glass School in September, late September. And that was a really, really special moment. And I just wanted to show that. We had students ranging from the age 13 all the way to 50. So we had the executive director in our class. That was a blast. It was really cool to work with the executive director of Pilchuck and of Hilltop, and have her like actually in the fires, and because she had no idea like how like hard neon was, and she was getting so frustrated. And I was like, this is why your program's so amazing. Like just by like learning how to work with this material, you're learning patience, perseverance, and there's so much to be taught about like the glass process, how much else you can learn from it. And so that was a really special moment. I just wanted to highlight that.
yeah. I think this is one of the most exciting things, like talking about neon and education. Like, so just like you said about the artistic director, like she had no idea. And most people don't. Like most people have no clue. And it's almost like by industry design that it's like the actual making of the neon has kind of been secretive for so long. So I think like as giving another avenue for people, because not everybody's going to love the hot shop, but as another avenue for people to explore and kids to explore glass, it's tremendous. And I think it's super exciting, the work that y'all are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then so this is like a work in progress I'm working on right now. This piece is going to be titled The Landlord Special, in parentheses, excuse my language, ass backwards. And then it's going to be painted onto the wall with a off-white beige, like this color right behind me. Probably painted right next to an outlet that I'll paint over with the same color. And then anything in the vicinity will be covered with this paint. Kind of speaking about, you got your light switches in your apartment and everything along those lines that landlords seem to just paint over instead of cleaning or whatever it is. But it's more so speaking about, the housing market right now and how, rent prices are just out the roof and all of those good stuff. I'm still fleshing out the details with this piece right here.
I think it's so
very excited to
timely.
make it.
Yeah, I think it's so timely. I mean, I just listened to a book about Amazon called Fulfillment, and they talked about Seattle, and just like they interviewed like an ex like an ex drug dealer talking to his friend in prison from Seattle. And he was telling his friend who had been in prison for 20 years how the city has just changed. And he's like, and he tried to ask what way, and he's like, you just have to see it. It's different. Like they brought in pot shops to the streets, and it's not like you think it would be. So I think it's super timely. And this piece is, I'm excited to see what you do more with this.
Thank you. And then I think this was on Saturday. Yeah. My good friend Douglas Burgess, he won an award at the annual Pilchuck auction. He got the same award I got a few years ago, and unfortunately, I was out of town in New York when I got that award. So me and him both wanted to celebrate getting the Juror's Choice at the auction. So we had to pull up in style, and we wanted to make wearable neon. We did a little angel and devil theme going on. And I just absolutely love that Pilchuck did the traditional neon sign with the green background. And if I'm not mistaken, did you bend that Pilchuck sign behind me, James?
I think I did make that Pilchuck sign a while back. Yeah, for some event. Difficult thing, but yeah, I mean that, like I was gonna say, like kind of goes into like a lot of the neon I make these days, and we can go into it more, but like it's just, it's so quick. It's like, oh no, we have this event tomorrow and we need something that like really ties the space in together. Like neon's one of the few materials that like you can't do that with LED. It's like you're not going to get a turnaround that fast, but like with neon, in a few hours a bender can like make something that is so loud and will last so long. So and that was made, yeah, years ago, pre-pandemic. So cool to see it. Oh,
James.
so I also went to Alfred University, and this is some of the first neon that I made in 2013. So I got into neon with Fred Sheeta, who was my intro to glass teacher. And I had never done glass blowing before Alfred. I came in doing ceramics, and then my first semester after that, like kind of foundations year that Jacob talked about, I did glass and video. And that kind of set, like really changed. Like I knew about video, but I didn't quite know as deep as we would go into it. So those two classes really set me on a trajectory that changed how I saw everything. I got really hooked on glass. And my buddy Denzel, he saw me in the hot shop a lot, and he was like, hey James, you know, you like the hot shop, like you should try neon, it's more fun. And I didn't really believe him. I thought it was just like beer signs and whatnot, but then I got thinking, like, how do they do that? And so when I asked Fred that I wanted to learn neon, he just said, oh, well, just show up Thursdays and Friday mornings at 8 a.m. And so I made it my mission to just show up. And even though I wasn't in the class, they didn't really say no to anybody. And this was actually at University of Madison, Wisconsin, where I skipped my sculpture and ceramics finals to go on a neon light road trip with them, even though I wasn't in the class. My ceramics teacher was totally cool about it. My sculpture teacher docked me a letter grade, but I still went, and I don't regret it by any means. So I was making these cubes, and this is something I made with Sarah Blood, who then took over because Fred retired that year. And so Sarah Blood, I feel really kind of lucky to have both professors. Sarah was definitely brought the program up to like the modern standards. And she was also big into concrete. So the center of that is concrete. And she pushed us artistically, I think, too. So after graduating from Alfred, I immediately went down to the Chrysler Museum of Art Glass Studio. They had an assistantship program there. They had, in Norfolk, they had the Neon District, which stood for New Energy of Norfolk. But we started also bringing neon to that. And so they had this big performative hot shop thing, which was a lot of fun. So this is me making glass pieces in a hot shop. And then I have a mobile neon manifold there that I made at Alfred with Sarah and this Argus grant that I got. And we were blowing things and then pumping them while they were hot and then throwing them in the microwave to light them up. Very nice for performative things. I also immediately got a job at a commercial neon shop just to like keep access to the material. And I basically relearned how to bend glass. I had never used the crossfire at Alfred. I didn't bend letters at all at Alfred. And so it wasn't until I got a job at a commercial sign shop to kind of keep access to it that like I was immediately like blown away by the attention to detail and just like, and yeah, like I actually, it took me months to like relearn how to do everything. But now, like, I'm so glad. And I quickly, like, the commercial, it became clear that the commercial could fund the artistic, and I could keep access to the material. And in one job, I could buy a whole box of glass and use like 10 sticks of that, and then have the rest just to mess around with. That would cost hundreds of dollars otherwise. So and I also learned sign skills, like how to make channel letters. So like those channel letters on the right there, that return to hieroglyphics piece. It's based off of the idea that we're going to revert back to hieroglyphs. So these are all of my favorite emojis that describe like my feelings of like electric, light, and then I get this happy childish feeling. And on the left is these Raising Cane's open signs. I learned 10 millimeter on how to do that. And that's one of the early ones that my boss actually marked out all the bends, like the order in which to do it. Brian Reel.
Hey,
And I went on a million service calls and saw what not to do and what to do. And so the art scene at the time in Norfolk, Virginia was super vibrant and super active. There were like people were collaborating left and right, and we could not make work fast enough for all the shows that were happening, which was really beneficial for me because I got to just like make idea after idea. And I made these exhibitable objects. So on the right is this yes cube, which is like tries to capture this feeling that I get from a lot of animated neon and wires everywhere. And it uses these transformers that we like would retrofit. So like there's this in the sign industry, there's this term called retrofit, where you basically go in to channel letters with neon in them and you tear out all the neon and then you stick in LEDs. It's so easy. But and it's like, oh my gosh, sacrilege. But I was getting all these cool old 60 MA bright transformers. So from this one job that we did these retrofits on, I got like 30 of these old transformers that would cost hundreds of dollars a piece, that I got to use for my artwork then. So it was immediately like flipping it. And on the left, this cookie dough synthesizer has these light sensitive things, and it's like a sugar rush of synthesizer, and it animates into three. Both of these are on this 3-channel animation sequence. And so as I mentioned before, the performative aspect I really loved. It had this kind of thing where every third Thursday, every month, there was this kind of celebratory energy. And so there was this mix of like celebration and creation that not only rubbed off on me, but rubbed off on a lot of the other people involved in that community. And it's been great to see like that kind of stick through, and a lot of us kind of having the same ideas. And I think a lot of it came from these kind of like, we would celebrate and create, and the performative aspect of it really captured that. And I often was, I don't know if like reckless is, it's not really reckless, but I would push the limits of like what we could do in the hot shop, and they were really supportive of that. So if you ladle glass on the TV, it'll be this awesome moment of like opticalness. And down here is this eye toy that you could stick on the TV to create feedback. So you would feedback with the molten glass, like distorting the TV until the TV exploded from the molten, or imploded from the molten glass, which was very fun.
Was it on? When you dropped the ladle, was it powered on?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
This is an exhibitable object called the shake machine. It has neon suspended in bungee rope, and it's a steel cage. And it's designed to shake itself off of whatever pedestal it's put on. So I've told them that they actually have to like put a leash on it or like strap it down. But if it did fall off the pedestal, it's steel. And like I said, the neon's on like bungee rope. So it's designed to like boing, like if it
Wow.
if it falls. I've wanted it to come back to this, but it's just a bunch of time. And but anyways.
I love like the like resistance to display.
yeah. Well, it's like coming from like a ceramicist, like I did ceramics before going to Alfred. So like I wanted to make objects, and I loved the idea of like, I'm gonna make this like thing that is easy to install as a vase, but then like kind of push it. And so yeah. So after Virginia, my partner Allie, she wanted to go to grad school. And so she got into UTA, University of Texas at Arlington. And so I followed her down to Texas. And Texas definitely left its mark a little bit on me. Like I got really into this idea of like, oh wow, like libertarian, like cowboy, like whoa. And so I also like, you could do whatever there. Like we had some restrictions as to what we could do commercially in Virginia, but very few. And in Texas, it was like, oh, just do whatever you want. Like, you want to put neon on your car? Like, yeah, you can do that. So I really, I was already like kind of getting into like wearable neon and things. And once I got to Texas, I felt like I was free to explore whatever. I also was doing art handling at the time, which kind of encouraged this freedom. And I learned, I saw like artists, we saw so many artists, and you saw like commercial galleries and galleries that would like art advisors who would sell art to like corporate clients. You'd see museums and private collectors. So you've got this really wide berth of the fine art industry. And you also saw that like galleries are businesses too, and they have to make money, and all this art handling stuff costs a lot of money. And I really saw that like as the artist, you're so free. So like I learned some practical skills, like how to pack anything and how to load a truck really well, and like how to drive across the country for like hours and hours by talking to the truck drivers. I learned how to drive a forklift in a warehouse full of expensive art. I saw like some of my favorite artists and got to like get this really intimate handling of the artwork. Like that's a Nam June Paik TV piece on the right there. And like I'm a big fan of Nam June Paik, so to get to like actually touch and handle and install the pieces is really special to me.
And I have to say, when James, the piece in the Museum of James Tumbleweed, he drove it himself to Millville, which I was so grateful for, and it was packed to perfection. We were so grateful. Diane Wood, the collections manager, and I were just like, it was styrofoam fitted perfectly, and we were just like unfolding the layers like, oh my God, what a gift this is to us. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we definitely learned to like pack really well, and like thank goodness, because we make is the neon is so fragile. So like that was definitely like to learn to like, oh, I can send something anywhere. And Sarah Blood actually taught me like that method that I brought. I brought like her base method of packing stuff to the art handling, and then they showed me like how to make it even fancier by like making like museum boxes and all that kind of stuff. So
hey James, do you use a turkey cutter to cut the foam?
yes, I actually do use a turkey cutter. I was just packing something earlier, and when I get off this call, I have to go and use that turkey cover some more.
Yeah.
So another thing in Texas was I rented a space at this makerspace. It was kind of like a makerspace, but they had no like stuff. They didn't have like nice facilities or anything. So it was this weird like space that you could kind of do whatever you wanted, called Acme in Riverfront Boulevard in Dallas. And so I found some neon torches. I learned like if you know where to look, you can find like torches just like sitting in. There's a lot of like people who have torches that are just sitting unused. And they're usually better to get some use in them than to sit and collect rust. So I made a bunch of phone calls and assembled like a bunch of torches, 6 torches in this case, and started offering neon classes. I started teaching in Virginia these neon classes to like people who had never done neon before, and it's amazing the breadth and variety of people that would sign up for these classes. Like I've taught nuclear physicists, I've taught railroad engineers, I've taught news reporters, I've taught punk band members, mechanics. Like this guy here is from this like punk band. He came from Houston. And Jacob here was a car mechanic, got into making pipes. Like the crew, the people you would get would come from all backgrounds, and that was really cool to me. Yeah, like a lot of them just had no idea how it was made. It was super fun. So and in doing this too, I also got to experience like the back end of running a class. It's like, oh, suddenly I need like all of these blow hoses, and I need to make sure all these people pay, and like that was also like, it made me very appreciative to like teach at another place like Urban Glass or something like that, where it's like, okay, you guys handle all that. Like I just have to worry about teaching, and that was nice. So this is a neon method. I was still doing like commercial neon on the side, and by this point, I was getting kind of good enough to where I could do a lot of stuff on my own. And then the neon vendors, there was a neon shop called Neon of Dallas, and they were really nice and supportive. And they, to this day, like that's the nicest neon shop I've ever seen. They had the best benders there. And I would come in and they would pump my tubes. So I'd come in, I'd see like these amazing like combination bends and like crazy stuff. And it really, and like whenever I would bake something for them, like I would bend it and then I'd come in the next day and I'd see like all these like red Sharpie marks. They'd be like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And they were like picking apart my stuff. And then on the left here, this is like a time tested, like if your car is full of like transformers and like cardboard and foam and stuff, and you need to transport a lot of neon, you can tape it to your roof and then like drive down the highway. And that worked all hunky-dory and well until one time I had all this like Italian glass, like hundreds of dollars worth of glass that I had bent up and these big arches. I taped it on my roof, but it was a lot of pollen. And so then I went down the highway and I got to where I was going. Like I went on the roof of my car and there was nothing there.
You didn't
Like,
notice them flying off?
no, I had no idea. I always drove and I had no AC in my van. And so like I would always just drive with the windows down and the radio turned on. That's just how I drove around everywhere.
So it was just
And
noisy.
in Texas, it would just be hot all the time. So I just sweat all the time. And I just didn't even know. And yeah, I got there, I was like, I had like a moment where I was like, did I put the tubes up there? And I was like, oh no. That was a scary thing. And thankfully, like I had enough glass in New York, but yeah.
Did you think the radio was just playing breaking glass?
I mean, I listen to music loud, so I mean, like I wasn't super surprised I didn't hear it, but yeah, it was definitely. So now, like, if you're ever gonna do this, the key is to make sure your roof's not dusty. Like, make sure your roof is clean before if you're gonna do this, and maybe like don't exceed 80 miles an hour on the highway. If you stay under 80, you're probably okay. But I see like I would see people do this on like the hood of their van, their truck and stuff. When I first saw this, they were like the old, like these like super old school sign people would like put like the cigarette, they'd have a cigarette cartons and they'd take the little flappies of cardboard and put them underneath to like add extra cushion to the glass pieces. It's pretty amazing. So once again, getting into wearables more, they had us at like the Cowgirl Museum. And once again, like an example of getting to like handle these like artifacts and things. So at the Cowgirl Museum, we got to handle all these like spurs and old Western stuff, which got me thinking like, oh, like the spur. And like I would always be handling these things and then go and bend neon right after work. I think I tried to like get out of work as soon as I could and then like zip off to Dallas and beat all the rush hour traffic and go bend neon. And so like I came up with ways to like to represent these kinds of things and wear them. And then this is a CCCFL company. I was really inspired by Rachel Rader, who was starting to like make like almost like parody companies as part of her art practice. And so this company, I tried to like, I took one of my first assignments that Fred gave us in Neon, which was to make something that installs in less than 15 minutes to make like basically the easiest install ever. So I thought like the joke is kind of like so easy, like it's like screwing in a light bulb. And so I literally made like the neon fit into a light bulb using a 3D printer and Allie's mold making skills because I can't make a mold to save my life. Yeah, so and I rip off of the LED branding to like and flip it to make it neon. But I never call it a neon light bulb because they're called cathode fluorescent light. Compact, that is.
So,
I've also started to wait.
Oh, I was gonna ask you, where's the transformer? Can you talk about like the actual powering of it?
Yeah, the transformer is this little 5K Tech 22 in there. And it's just sandwiched right in between there. And with a 3D printer, like I found that like the 3D printer and you get some like model, I use like Tinkercad. It's designed for like kids to 3D model stuff, but it's great because it's like the wood shop, but on your couch. Like you just click, clicky away. And then you're like making all these fittings and then you just hit print. So I would like spend the evening like on the computer, like on the couch, just clicking away. And then I'd send it to the 3D printer, hit print, and then I'd go to work the next day and the thing would be printing and I'd get home from work and the thing would be done. So, and then like I'd touch it and be like, oh, I want to change this and this and this to like fix X, Y, and Z and then just print another one. So in that way, like it truly was like a rapid prototyping thing. But the problem is most 3D printer filaments are thermoplastics. And the transformer and electrodes are going to generate heat. So if it wasn't for Allie being able to like translate that and make a mold, like a rubber mold out of that, and then translate it into like a castable resin or something like that, I wouldn't have been able to. And I wanted it to be plastic because I wanted to emulate like the light bulb. And so that's how we were able to like make it so that the transformer wouldn't melt the print. But technically, there is a slight design flaw with these in the sense that the transformer is literally sandwiched between two electrodes. So the electrodes are generating heat and heating up the transformer. So far, we've had them on 365 days a year for years, and I haven't had one transformer burn out. But I am aware that it's a design flaw, and so I'm starting to like design ways that are like I'm always like trying to keep this bulb as small as possible because it's pretty big for a bulb because it is a cold cathode transformer. But I thought about ways of like making this like bigger, and I just like giving the transformer a lot of air to breathe. But yeah, I felt pretty lucky that I haven't had any transformers fail. I mean, and they're also way underloaded, so I'm not like drawing a ton of power out of it either.
James, we
yeah.
had a question about how do you wear wearable neon, or how do you power wearable
That's
neon?
a great question. So with any battery, like a AA, AAA, C, D, each of them put out 1.5 volts. And the transformer, they run between 9 and 15 volts. A lot of the wearable neon a lot of the like DC transformers and batteries put out a direct current DC. So with 8 AA batteries, you can have about, depending on how much neon you're trying to light, between like 15 and 45 minutes. Or if you're a lot of neon, like 5 and 45 minutes. But there's other ways of like DC power. So you can use 9-volt battery packs, and they don't last super long. And these days there's like these lithium rechargeable packs that you can wear. And so like you can get like long leads and such that you can put the battery pack in like your pocket and then run a wire down your pants or something like that. I think in the Boots case, I actually like, there's all that tape there. I think in the midst of that tape, there's actually like a battery pack underneath that flap of my boot. And like all this tape, there's the transformer like sitting right there. And on those, I was actually using these like cheap, like Chinese automotive transformers that are actually like twice as efficient as like the next best transformer. Like you can get a lot of life out of those. But I can't seem to find them anymore. But that's all right. So in Virginia, I was like starting to get into like these kind of collaged, like circuit bent toy sculptures. And I was also like working at that sign shop. We'd work on some old automotive neon, and I loved the way that the neon would wrap around these old signs, and it kind of felt kind of carnivalesque. And so I started making more of these in Texas, and I'd use these photosensitive oscillators to press the buttons. So basically, I was making the toys be light sensitive, and then the toys were controlling the neon, but then the neon was also controlling the toys. So I'd kind of make this feedback loop. In addition, the oscillators be pressing the buttons super fast. So these toys aren't really designed to have their buttons pressed that fast, and it would kind of electrically degrade them in sort of this unpredictable way, and they'd start kind of acting erratic. But there was like most of the time, like this one actually has that moving spinny thing on it. Most of them have no moving parts, but they still like electrically degrade. And I also wanted to leave like show all the wires and show every screw in there. And by leaving them all exposed, I'm like hoping that like a little bit of that high voltage gets into the toys. But like you can't like directly zap them, of course. But yeah, these kind of like evoke that like always on, always moving. Like in Virginia, I definitely fell in love with this like working all the time. Like I'm gonna work and like get this other job and go work from one job to another. And that carried over in Texas. So this kind of reflects that super love of that, as well as this like, I'm gonna have a really short attention span and make work for like people with a 10-second attention span. And I also like seeing the tumbleweed. I kind of came to see like became fascinated with tumbleweeds when I moved to Texas. And I kind of started to see like the tumbleweed as like a metaphor for the artist. So like Fred Cheeto would always like, he didn't like, class time with him was like story time. And he would always give these stories of like traveling all across the country. And it made me want to travel. And so I came to see like this, and he would talk about all these friends too that were also just traveling a lot. And so I kind of thought like, oh, okay, like a tumbleweed grows and grows, and then like eventually like uproots and then just gets blown around to wherever it goes. And along the way, it's like dropping off seeds, but it's also picking up crap along the way. And so I thought like, oh, as an artist, like you're growing and growing, and then suddenly like you like you turn 18 and you're just like, all right, I'm out, I'm off into the world. And from wherever you go, like you're picking up things everywhere you go. Like you're picking up bits of knowledge and methods and techniques and ideas, and even just like seeing the world, it changes the way that you, it changes your ideas and changes what you make. So I kind of come to see these two things. And this is more stuff for me at Wheaton. Oh, this is the electric tumbleweed that's on display on the right there. That pink, Wheaton had a lot of like amazing pinks and colors. And so when I went there, I was making these little doodles in every shade of pink I could find. And the Mercury Rose, that is the pink in the 50 Shades of Pink tumbleweed, is the last pink. So like all of your tones and rods in your eyes adjust when you see colored light. And so that is the last pink to not turn white. All the other pinks would turn white after looking at them for a while, and that one does not. So that's why it is that color. So while I was at Wheaton, they had a neon shop that was like just sitting in a trailer. And so it was like they had most of the stuff needed, but I got some Katie Severance over at Salem. She helped build this manifold, and it was so amazing. And I figured like we have Salem right here making scientific glass, there's like scientific glass blowers right here. So why would we buy a manifold from South Carolina from some jerk when we could just have it made right here? And now the Salem students are actually maintaining this through Amy Lamar's, who did the conversation last week in conversation. She has such an exciting plasma program over there, and those students are actually working on maintaining it. So it looks even better than this. This is one of my first photos. And these like regulators need to be changed out. They had a really generous donation from Mr. Galetto, who paid for these gases in large quantities. So the idea is this thing is on wheels and can wheel over to any one of the kilns at Wheaton, and you can make plasma with this. So it's a super exciting setup, and I hope more people use it and really push it, especially folks that have like Jacob, that have like a neon and hot glass experience. It's nice to have both of those. Also pictured here is Chirpy, who showed up in my studio day one. And while I'm not a cat person, Chirpy has converted me. And now we have Chirpy because no one was taking care of Chirpy at Wheaton. Because Wheaton was in a transitionary period at that time. And so yeah, Chirpy, she loved this foam. And since doing the art handling thing, I'd always love to have good foam around. So Chirpy took advantage of that too. I made this sculpture here.
We should mention as a disclaimer, if you're part of the fellowship program, we cannot guarantee pet adoption, but we would love for everyone to do that.
Like I said, Wheaton was like undergoing like a transitionary period. And yeah, there were quite a few cats roaming around that like no one really they didn't really have like a dedicated person to take care of them. So people were encouraging me to take Chirpy, as well as Allie. Allie really wanted Chirpy as a pet, as I would like, she was back in Texas and I would like FaceTime or like Zoom or Skype call or whatever. And I'd be like, check out this cat that's like sitting on my lap. She's like, oh, she's like, her heart like melted. And she's like, oh my gosh. So yeah, that's the story of Chirpy. At Wheaton, I made another one of these Wild One pieces. Like you really have to have a town with like a good like suburban population. And Millville has that. So they had great thrift stores with really good toys. Like if I can't make these in Brooklyn really, because the thrift stores here don't have toys. There's just not the financial incentive. Like they have to like sell like fancy clothes. And so if I ever make these, like I do love to go, but I have to go to New Jersey like to get toys unless I'm on like a road trip or something like that. I can't find them. So yeah, and at Millville, I was able to really, while I was at Wheaton, I was able to really go nuts with this thing. This is a video of this Wild One. It's the fourth one in the series, D. So since it's light sensitive, when it's light, it really starts coming alive and getting active. And when it's dark, it kind of goes to sleep and is much more calm. I also was making these celebration chandeliers while at Wheaton, and these are real fireworks and the neon with no boots or anything, and beer cans. consumed at Wheaton. There's some like similarities in that consumption and the beer run, but I didn't use glass in that case. But like I really wanted to use that mirrorized glass because I felt like there was a similarity between like seeing the houses of the 1% that I would see in Texas. Like it definitely changed my perception of what my dream home would be. And also seeing like kind of Jeff Koons, like ultra polished, super shiny thing. And as glassblowers and any kind of crafter, not just glassblowers, but ceramicists and printmakers do this as well. When they congregate, there's often like these celebratory things that happen. And so this is kind of a nod to that, and kind of like party shenanigans. And it's funny because like in a similar way, like other people at Chrysler would do this sort of thing where they would like talk about like people that did go to RISD would talk about like student loan debt, and they were like, we've been trained to make goblets for kings, but yet we have just a basic beer income, and it's kind of it's like weird thing. So while at Wheaton, I was collaborating with this artist Alicia Eggert, and I helped I fabricated some things for Alicia while in Texas. She teaches at UNT in Denton, and then Color Factory approached Alicia, and they wanted like something more celebratory and something loud, which I do celebratory and loud artwork pretty well. So she approached me with this, and she said she wanted me to make this thing with her, but she wanted me to work as a collaborator, not just a fabricator, which I was super excited about. And they had like a big budget, which was also super exciting. So we got to do a lot. And this has like I think it's like over 400 channels of animation, like hundreds of neon transformers. So even though like I was thrilled to do the idea of like programming this thing, I was so glad that I didn't. And we hired these folks at TXRX Labs, because like when you walk in, it's like all blank like this, and you see those hand sensors. So you have to touch hands and hold hands in order to activate the space and activate the sculpture. And it slowly builds up into a crescendo and a climax. But if you let go to like take a selfie, the whole thing like deflates. And so you have to maintain that hand holding, and you can't take a selfie photo. Now they did actually, like Color Factory folks, it's like a art fun house. They put in like a camera there, but we were very like against like it being a selfie booth and a selfie fest, which I think we achieved. And also it's different every time you experience it. So like that was one of the things that made that working with those other folks so nice, is that every time the sequence of lights is different, and the soundtrack is also different when you experience it. And that was one of the last projects I did in Texas. It definitely also like helped pay for me to move to New York. So while I was at Wheaton, I got a job as Allie and I knew we didn't want to stay in Texas when we moved there, and we both wanted to move to New York after, like, we realized this before moving to Texas. And so I was looking for like jobs, and someone heard about this. I ended up getting a full-time job in New York, but that fell through while I was at Pilchuck after I quit my jobs in Texas. So I like freaked out and called everyone I knew in New York, and they all just said like, call us when you get here. So I was expecting to like not have work when I got there. And Stephanie was nice enough to let me stay with her while I got things set up. And I quickly found that I was like overwhelmed with work. And people were paying me more money than I'd ever been paid in my life just to do the bending of the neon. And that was pretty amazing. I could just bend it and then hand it to somebody. Whereas in Texas, I would sell the job, I'd bend it, I'd pump it, and then I'd like install it. I did every aspect of the job. Whereas in New York, I just had to make it. And so I made a lot of these Seacrest scribbles there and making like piles of them. Whereas that was a big theme at Wheaton. And then when I got to New York, I was still like making work that I wanted to make in Texas. So like this is this oil celebration chandelier, and just like crafters celebrate really hard, people in the energy industry, which is like the oil industry, Texas, they also party really hard because they would work for months on end, and then they'd get back for like a week or two, and have all this money and then go bananas partying. But they were also like, I'd hear the stories from what they do out in the field. It's like, yeah, we just drink bottled water all the time and there's nowhere to throw it away. So we just throw the bottled water out on the ground. And it's like, wow, like how ironic, like the bottled water that is like the plastic that makes that is being fed by the oil industry, yet it hydrates the oil workers and then they just litter. And it's like this beautiful system where they get these jobs that pay them really well, but they're also destroying the planet, but also fueling all of us. Yeah, so this piece has all materials like the natural gas we use to make the glass comes from the fracking, and it's all oil materials with some fans and some celebratory things and scintillating money signs. Because it's a cash celebration. So in New York, like this goes into that commercial neon thing. And I was also just like blown away by the kind of clients that we would get. And so like on the left is for Nike and on the right is for like the late night show with Elmo and Sesame Street. So that's Cookie Monster's cookie there. This is more Elmo late night show neon. Like on the left is like for Tiffany. We do a lot of like TV stuff. So this is like for some crime show. I don't even remember which one. But like that little butterfly on the right. Yeah, like a lot of times I don't know who the stuff is for, and I kind of don't like that because if I know sometimes it psychs me out and I get too caught up in the details. So like these are like Teen Vogue and Motorola. And like it's also neat to see to make the thing and then see it in like screen advertisements later. And so like I'd seen these like logos before, but didn't really know what they were for. And then to see them like up in real life was pretty nuts. And so like I would see these like ad campaigns and then see like then get to make the neon for it or make the neon and then see the ad campaign. And it really kind of showed me that like this neon is the phone screen, but in real life. And I love that. Like it's like because I love the idea of like your phone being like the bleeding edge of advertisement. But we're also using this material that's like as we might say like is like dead, like neon's been dying for so long, but it's like it's still being used, like it's still relevant. And like we were talking about with the Pilchuck thing, it's like there's not a lot of materials out there, or there's none that really glow in every direction that can be made with such a fast turnaround time and have such an impact. So more Nike stuff. And also like as another thing that I was kind of taken aback by was just like how fast the turnaround time is on these things. Even though the tubes might have a lifespan of 75 years, the pace of advertising is so fast in Manhattan that oftentimes after like the tube's lifespan, the ad campaign is done, which is just a couple months, the tubes end up in the trash. And we're just like have to dispose of them with mercury disposal and everything. We try to save the best ones and save as much as we can. And ideally, like we're trying to get them into the hands of artists, but it gets tricky with companies like Nike and stuff that are really protective of their company logos. You can't like I couldn't necessarily like if I was an artist and I got a bunch of Nike swooshes and I had any kind of like social justice stuff in my work, I'd probably make a piece about how Nike is like, going around to factories and everywhere and moving into a new place. There's all kinds of human rights things with that. So Nike wants to keep their image in the best light. And since they're hiring us to do this stuff, it's like, you got to be careful with that kind of thing. And then the world like changed. There was this virus that went around. I don't know if anyone heard of that, but I started like reading a lot more. And I was reading about social media. And also like at that time, I kind of started reevaluating my relationship with social media. Whereas like I've used these tools like Instagram and things to connect to a lot of artists that I really admire and love. But at the same token, when I start seeing things from their perspective and their business model, I started to think like maybe this isn't the right tool for me to use to like put my things out into the world. And so my brother's also been learning computer science things and the back end of how the web works and programming. So I've started to learn some programming myself, and I'm getting really into, this is like stuff that I really want to get more into, but it's a very steep learning curve. So this is like, so I've been using, putting servers on small single board computers like Raspberry Pis and then using those servers and building websites that the server hosts, and then that server can control Neon. So you can control Neon from anywhere by going to that website. So on the right, this video is me doing controlling it on the website, and this one is my brother in Maryland controlling the Neon for me in New York, and he's doing it from Maryland. So I love this idea of your phone being able to like you can just go on your phone and control it and interact with the piece. Kind of like this meeting, whereas like we're kind of all together, but we're not really together, and you can be there and not actually being there. This book on the right, Age of Surveillance Capitalism, it's a heady book. Shoshana Zuboff's a professor emeritus at Harvard, so it is written in that way, but it's a really good book and will definitely get you to question your use of ad surveillance technologies. When the other thing about going to New York is my color palette exploded as far as neon goes. All the Italian colored glass tubes get imported to Brooklyn Glass first, and then they sent out to coat there. So like anything that breaks in shipping, like you could get a good deal on that stuff because they can't sell it for full price. So you get like small scraps of glass, but still getting that colored, that expensive colored glass that's so nice, and get those. So I started, yeah, like my color palette went crazy. And at Wheaton, it's first started to expand because I at first had access to some of these colors at Wheaton, and I started getting into making rainbows. I love making neon rainbows, but I was always like very particular about the steps between the rainbows. So I wanted to make the rainbow with an equal gradient of steps, as well as correlate that to the alphabet. And so I made this 26 color rainbow alphabet, and started exploring because we were kind of getting into lockdown mode and there really wasn't much going on. And so I had time to play with things. So on the left here is a sequencer. On the middle, I was making these 3D printed tube supports to stick glass onto glass and sort of make piles of things, which is one thing that Wheaton kind of left with me was seeing Wheaton, there was like so much, they had excessive amounts of stuff, and there'd just be piles of things like in the back, like piles of color and like things that were like, it was like the land of plenty almost. So I loved seeing those piles and I wanted to make piles of things. On this video is me making a bunch of oscillators. These CD4106 chips have 6 oscillators on each one, and they can each be made into dimmers. So there's like 6 different channels of dimming happening here. And if you turn it down too much, then they start strobing. And so like last year, I taught a class at Glass Axis in Columbus, Ohio, and I was able to visit Bree and Aaron. This is Bree with boot hands, and Bree is an amazing tube puller. So she is pulling tubes there. And yeah, getting to teach once again after pandemic was amazing. I felt like I was like teaching deprived. And I was saying like after that week of being able to interact socially and teach again, it felt so good on my like mental headspace. I was like, oh wow, like I feel like I did years ago, which was really nice. And yeah, Bree with boot hands, very fun. They're actually, Bree and Aaron are talking about setting up a neon studio in Columbus. Like Aaron said when he took that class, like the class I taught, because Bree's partner Aaron took my class, and then he brought the neon back to critique at OSU. And the students at OSU, who Glass Axis has, OSU's old neon shop, the students at OSU were like, where did you make that? Like, I want to make neon. And she's like, oh, well, sorry. Like, you know, like we're setting up our own thing, but this is with our money. So you're going to have to like come by and talk to us. Maybe OSU should start a neon shop. I don't know. Once again, to get to actually like install this piece was really nice. So on the left here is the students in Ohio, and the right is in Norfolk. And I really wanted this alphabet soup. I wanted it to be like alphabet soup. Like I wanted to scatter it out randomly. So initially I spent all this time like writing a computer program to like, the computers are really bad at making things random. I spent all this time like trying to make a computer program that would like randomize the thing to make a big install pattern. And then when I was in Ohio, I was like, wait, I have all these students that need to learn how to mount neons. Like I'm gonna have them install it and that will be randomized. And so I let them go to town installing it. And then on the right, I did this one, but I did not use a randomized computer pattern. But I tried not to like make a system to it. So it's pseudo random. And then so during pandemic, Allie and I started a company. We started our Nebula Neon company. We had talked about starting a company, but had not really planned to do it for many years. And pandemic kind of, for us and for a lot of folks we've talked to, a lot of people started businesses during pandemic just because we were confident like that. Like before pandemic, being in New York, there was so much work. Like I worked every day, and I was confident that would come back, but there was no work around this time. This is probably September 2021, I want to say. No, 2020. It's all a blur. We made this neon for WFMU, which is a radio station I listen to a lot while bending. And then this is Allie. She works for everyone. She blows a lot of glass. So here she is at BKG blowing glass, and on the right, she's dumping 2 mercury traps at once. And at Nebula, we don't throw away most of the stuff we make. A lot of we bend stuff that actually stays up for a long time. So like there's some housing stuff. I had to include that there because Jacob does a lot of housing work.
Yeah.
We work for like small businesses, and it's been really nice to be able to support small businesses and make it accessible to those folks, as well as artists. We do a bit of production work. These are for Raising Cane's chicken fingers. And it's pretty neat to bend a lot of things and get that repetition in there. It's really steady work. And that, like over pandemic, they actually increased the amount of neon they ordered. So then they order like 10 sets a month, and we can never keep up. But as it goes through Brian, like it's pretty relaxed as far as timelines go, and it's somewhat flexible. It's neat. It's also nice artistically, like seeing this kind of repetition. And every time I make these kind of things and set them out, I'm always like, wow, something's nice about this. But I haven't yet found a way to like incorporate it into my own work. But I do love seeing them all, the repetitive stacks of things. Definitely, it's a skill builder. But more so of a skill builder is the amount of the variety of neon we're making. We're making big stuff, small stuff, and everything in between, which is really good for building your skills, because you always have a different challenge, and it's not as repetitive. It's not that Raising Cane's chicken finger is the only repetitive thing we do. And so since like I said, we have that amazing glass distribution, I can fix beer signs and replace like painted glass with the real thing, because all these sticks came half price because they were broken in shipping. So it actually makes economic sense to repair some of these signs. Let's see what else. And through all this work, I've kind of now I find like crazy patterns and think like, how am I going to bend this? And then like you do. And so it's been neat to be able to kind of like, you can kind of just make anything now, which is pretty nice artistically. It's like, I'm not scared of, you don't have to be scared of a lot of designs. So on the right here, this is like with this gas filling tube suckers during the residency with some of the hand pulled tubing that Galen has, and putting welds in all the bends. So you can kind of make these hybrid shapes, which I've been starting to play around with more of lately as I start to get more confident with making things. So these are some classes I've been teaching at Urban. I've been teaching some neon animation classes. During pandemic, we did virtual classes, which was great because you could code and learn on webcam, which was great because you're making the thing on the computer. But there was also this other physical side of using physical oscillators, and those are really hard to show over a webcam. So we had both those videos are from that recent class. And this one, the guitar right here is controlling. No, that guitar. The Elmo guitar is controlling the neon. And on the right here, this little Clifford toy is hooked up to some oscillators and is controlling some of those other tubes over there. Just a way to animate without computers. So I mentioned I listened to that radio station WFMU. They have these stunt radio shows where you call in. And on one of the shows, this is Andy Breckman. He's a writer. He wrote the show Monk. He wrote Rat Race. He's done a couple of different projects, and it's like a nice window to like the Hollywood world, like a behind the scenes of like ghostwriters and things like that. And on the left is the station manager Ken Friedman. who's in charge of like the FCC and like make sure that they don't like get fined by saying bad words on the air or something like that. But they take call in. So one of the shows, Andy makes an idea. He pitches an idea for callers to call up and contribute to this idea. And then they immediately within the hour commodify the idea and shop it around to movie studios to try to sell the idea. I love that thought of like the idea can be immediately commodified and then just sold as an idea, not even going into production. And then this guy, Kenny G, had a pretty avant-garde show. They're non-commercial and listener supported, so they're really free to say whatever. And Kenny G has this thought of like, there's no original ideas. He had a project where he tried to print out the entire internet once at a gallery in Mexico City. There was like reams and reams of paper being sent to this gallery and stacks of paper because they were trying to print the internet. It's like an impossible task. He teaches at Penn State, or yeah, I think it's Penn State, where he teaches a class called Uncreative Writing. And he has this first assignment is for students to plagiarize 5 pages. It can be of any text, but they have to explain why they plagiarized it. This group, Negative Land, they make quote unquote music. It's not quite easy listening music, but they have an interesting approach of ideas and advertisement. And I really enjoy that approach because it's in a similar field to where I am, and these ideas. And thinking of that, like Neon has working in this commercial field and working with artists, you can see like there's genuine like thieves out there for ideas. Like this example from Sarah Blood, like this clothing company approached her, loving her work and wanting to work with her. And she gives them like, she's like, okay, great. Like, this is what it's going to take and this is what's going to cost and everything. And after explaining those things to them, suddenly like she doesn't hear back from them. And then sees that they're like, her friends were like, hey, check this out. It's kind of similar to your stuff. It's like, you should have, like, you stole my stuff and had someone else make it. And there's genuine thieves out there, but there's also like artists accusing each other of stealing their own work. So there's like a mix of that. And there's also like people who are getting their ideas using search engines and Pinterest and things. And so I can't tell you how many of these good vibes only signs I've made. And pretty much every time the person that's commissioning it thinks it's like their idea and they think it's like their brilliant thing. And I'm like, I'm not trying to burst your bubble, but like I've made a couple of these before. And I mean, I think the different social media sites only serve to kind of reinforce these ideas. And so, and with these kind of thoughts, I created this free intellectual property hotline where it's like a direct line to artist studio at the cultural hub of Brooklyn. So I got this Brooklyn phone number, and I thought, like, what if this utopian dream of like the artist is the only source for new ideas? Like all new ideas come from artists. And it's like thinking about like, oh yeah, like how many movie remakes have been made in the last decade? Like it's so much easier just to like repackage an idea that we know is going to do well at the box office than to do something new that's untested, uncharted. And so every idea that's that is given away is recorded into this black book. It's actually a red book, and I'm currently searching for the perfect window for this. I had a studio visit the other day with some artists from Bushwick, and they suggested this like hip coffee shop, which I definitely need to get in touch with the owner of that, because that sounds like a good thing. The only anything with close proximity to tech workers, I think is good, because I've kind of tried to like take their pricing model of like the engagement only, so it's like free. And there's that red book with one of my favorite gas stations is from this Penn, Fuel City, where dreams come true. It's a gas station. Yeah, so you can call up this number. It'll be in a glass publication, New Glass Review should be in there. So, oh my gosh, you have it.
I do.
I need to go to my old apartment and pick up the mail there. And then, wow, there it is. So yeah, people can call that number. And I need to like, I have the thing, but I always have to have this thing with me now because like, I never know, like at any moment, someone could just call that thing. And I gotta have, it'd be nice for someone to be there to like answer the call to give away an idea.
Thank you everybody so much for joining us here. I know James is just a wealth of knowledge and has so much to share with us on Neon and as you can tell, if you would like to follow him, speak with him, and or Jacob, you can contact both of them and follow them through the methods that are on the site here. And Jacob, I will thank you for being here. And please, when James comes back online, please give my thanks to him as well.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us talk about neon. And thank you, Fallon and Pamela, for facilitating this. This has been a bunch of fun.
It's been a lot
Absolutely.
of fun. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And thank you to the audience. And please come check out Collecting and Connecting. It's open till the end of 2022. And you'll get to see James's beautiful piece. I'm so sorry you don't get to hear more from it. But hopefully we can follow up or try something else. So thank you.
Hopefully. And I want to encourage everybody to register for the next Wheaton Conversation, which is with Allison Ruza, and that is going to be on Thursday, November 17th.
That's what
I
it
just
is.
wanted to, again, thank you so much for participating. It was a
Yeah.
fantastic, very informative talk, and I encouraged everybody to follow you or reach out to you if they want to hear more and connect with you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. For everyone who is still here, please feel free to download the chat, or you can reach out to me through email and I can send that to you. We did include some really great links to learn more about neon and the work of Jacob and James. And I would also love to hear from those of you who are either new to this series or new to WheatonArts. Feel free to contact me with any comments or questions that you may have. And I sincerely thank you for joining us for this program. Have a great day, everybody.